Welcome, YouTube friends. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel. Plenty of content. We're previewing Man City and Liverpool's top of the table clash and the rest of the weekend's big fixtures. Vamos! Hey, everybody. Welcome to Qué Golazo. James Bench in the house. Jonathan Johnson in the house. LME here as we discuss a massive game in the Premier League as Man City and Liverpool face each other. Perhaps not one of many coming up in the season, but in the league, in the Premier League, this is the one to watch to see what will happen as they race for the coveted title. We'll also discuss Everton against Manchester United. And of course, Erik ten Hag, is this getting closer sooner rather than later? The relegation dogfight. We'll talk a little bit about Serie A, the Uefa reforms, and so much more. Qué Golazo weekend preview. Jonathan Johnson, James Bench, LME begins right now. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Qué Golazo, youtube.com/Qué Golazo. We're getting closer to 11,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. Keep on sharing. Spread the word, like, and subscribe. Qué Golazo Pod on Twitter. Let's get going, everybody. A huge game in the Premier League as Man City and Liverpool face each other. First of all, James Bench, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Yeah, it's been a hectic few days, and we've got an even more significant game ahead of us, even after those Champions League quarterfinals. So I'm absolutely buzzing for this one. I think maybe because, you know, I'm a bit of a neutral in it as well. I've not been this excited for a game in months, years. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I agree. As a neutral, it's really exciting, actually. You release that pressure and you just watch and enjoy. Jonathan Johnson, how's it going, sir?
Hey there, guys. Great to be back on with you. Doing well, thanks. Can't say I'm as buzzing as James Bench is. Obviously, this season a little bit quieter over here in Paris now, but no, really enjoyed the Champions League games so far this week. Looking forward to the Europa League games as well coming up after we've recorded, and looking forward to looking ahead to this one with you guys this weekend.
Absolutely. And if you're watching this on YouTube, the games of Europa should probably already be out. Listening and podcast on Friday as well. But yeah, absolutely buzzing for some great European action this week. Liverpool defeated Benfica, pretty resoundingly, just took care of business. And Man City just about got that win against Atletico de Madrid. Let's talk about the Premier League. Of course, the Premier League table is tight. And I really didn't think this was going to be a conversation heading into it, but Manchester City lead the table with 73 points, Liverpool with 72. It's really, really close. And actually, Liverpool have a better goal differential as well. So even a draw could be significant. Let's begin, James Bench, with the latest news regarding both sides. I guess specifically even more so Liverpool, but let's talk about the squads and how they're looking in as they look ahead to this great game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, to the best of my knowledge, as we record this now, we're talking about near full strength squads where, you know, the only absentees are a bit longer term. So Ruben Dias in City's case, and obviously that is a big blow, but that's maybe mitigated by the fact that Kyle Walker will come back in, having not played in midweek. And I think we saw in midweek just how many options Pep Guardiola has for this game and any game ahead. I'm sure he wasn't deliberately holding back Phil Foden and holding back Jack Grealish just for this game. But, you know, they will come in as completely fresh legs, fresh eyes. And I mean, it's almost similar with Liverpool as well. You have to say, you know, Diogo Jota didn't start out in Lisbon, nor did Roberto Firmino. There's so many options for both these teams and how they set up. It is, in many ways, it's, you know, the ideal moment to play this game, because it's, you know, the tension's there, but it maybe isn't going to suffocate the contest. There's still opportunities for other teams to catch up if they drop points, but equally, you kind of look at it and you look at the run of form that both these two teams are on. And we should say City as well. There's been a lot of conversations about, they had a 14-point lead. And I was kind of looking back, I was like, when did they have this 14-point lead? It's true that they did, but it was for a few hours on January the 1st before Liverpool played the next day. And it was because they played 2 games more. So City have set real top quality title winning pace. It's just the pace that Liverpool are on right now is relentless, remorseless, winning every single game. So it feels massive. There will be opportunities, I suspect, to make up points. But equally, you know, this could be the moment where the season changes, and actually the other two teams could just go and win every single game after this. So who knows?
Yeah, I'm glad that James mentioned the games in hand that Liverpool had, because I feel like every time we've been speaking about the Premier League on the last couple of podcasts, certainly sort of around about the beginning of the year, we were talking about those games in hand and how Liverpool would have the opportunity to close the gap at some point. It's just that they would have to stay motivated while they saw City so far ahead of them. And I think they've done the task that was put in front of them, and now they come into this with almost a little bit more motivation than City. I mean, obviously for City, this is the chance to perhaps knock Liverpool back a little bit after they've built up so much momentum. But for Liverpool, also at the same time, the chance to finally leapfrog them after coming from fairly far back with those games in hand. I'm actually curious to know what James makes of the Mo Salah situation, because I know LME grilled me about it midweek after the Champions League win over Benfica. But I'm curious to know what James makes of it, and whether Salah, could be starting this one on the bench, given that many people expected him to actually start in Lisbon as a substitute.
No, I don't really see that. I think, for one, he has had a spectacular record against Manchester City, which we saw last time out, where he scored quite possibly two of the best goals of the whole season, certainly of his whole season, in that 2-2 draw. He's a very good fit, and I mean, it just speaks to the standards he is setting, that we have these conversations about whether he's not kind of at the peak of his powers. And yeah, he's not at the peak of his powers, but that is a level that few other forwards can reach. I think it's always better with players like Salah, when they're having a bit of a wobble, to just sort of assume it is only that. Equally, that the one thing you'd say is kind of the competition for those other two slots is so intense that if Salah does struggle early on, there's no reason to not take him off if he's not having a great game. I would say that Sadio Mane has been playing well enough to merit a start. Diogo Jota, we know what he can do as a fantastic poacher, and I think that's what you need against the City defense that without Diaz might wobble a little bit. But no, I think Salah has to start. I think it's Salah, Jota, and another. I think it could be any of the three, and I think you can make an argument for any of the three. But for the biggest game of the season, you need your best player, and you just, even if you don't think he's going to be 100%, 90% Mo Salah is actually better than even any of Liverpool's other forwards.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. But I think that we're not. And listen, the reason why JJ and I were talking about it midweek, and I think it's definitely worth asking James Bench once again, is because, of course, Mohamed Salah. I mean, it's almost insane to think, oh my God, he has to start against Man City. But the statistics, at least from an offensive standpoint, prove that there is an argument to be made in conjunction with what you just said, James Bench. It's not just like that Salah hasn't scored a non-penalty goal since mid-February, but it's also because you got Diogo Jota killing it, Luis Diaz, fantastic on the wing. Don't forget about Sadio Mane, of course. I'm wondering if maybe the contractual situation between him and the club is weighing on him, losing Africa Cup of Nations, and on top of that, not making it to the World Cup. Is it just too much? Does Jurgen Klopp maybe think, you know what? Let's just Mo, I know that everybody expects you in this game. Let's wait till 30 minutes to go, in the game. And then let's unleash you. Maybe that's just a certain sense of motivation for Mohamed Salah to say himself, are you going to bench me? All right, start me in the 70th minute and see why you made the biggest mistake. So I guess it's a devil's advocate argument, Jonathan Johnson. But I agree. I think Salah will start. I'm just thinking, should it be actually, Diogo Jota, Sadio Mane, and Firmino to start it all up and then see how things develop in the second?
Yeah, I mean, this is just sort of the extent to which Jurgen Klopp really now is spoiled for choice in terms of the talent that he has in that attacking lineup. Because I think that Luis Diaz as well, made a fantastic case for him to be included in midweek with his Champions League performance.
Goal and assist,
I think that the bench is also right. You can't just always look at the current form. It's well documented. Salah hasn't scored from open play since mid-February. When you're a player of Salah's caliber and you have that sort of history in the fixture, I think Klopp would be right I wouldn't really even call it a gamble. I think he'd be right to back Salah and start him in this one and hope that he comes good. To be honest, it just takes me back to what we were saying in midweek, where I was almost more surprised that he didn't take the opportunity to perhaps give Salah a rest, bring him on around the hour mark, because I think, with all due respect to Benfica, Liverpool probably could have got that job done without Salah on the pitch, given the way that some of the other attacking talents performed. But it's interesting as well, obviously, for me, from a Parisian perspective, that these rumours about Kylian Mbappe have now resurfaced, linking him with Liverpool. It's happened in the past. And now, since French claims that there's another club that's come in and looked at him, potentially interested in getting him as a free agent this summer.
It's nonsense. This is something that's been sort of puffed up by media outlets that know that Liverpool drive clicks and conversations. It's just, and you see what Klopp said about Haaland. This isn't their approach. This isn't how they want to do business. They want to sign Salah to a new contract. It's the Mbappe stuff. I live for this being cut out by Des, our producer, if I'm wrong in the summer. But it's completely against everything that Liverpool want to do. And there's never been any credible links with him at all.
I mean, Mbappe with a Scouse accent, that would be amazing. I would love that. But yes, the clear priority is the Mohamed Salah contract. And by the way, Sadio Mane's extension as well is not too far away. Let's just quickly talk about Man City for a second. They've just lost one of their last 12 Premier League home matches against Liverpool, 1-7, drawn 4, going down 4-1 in Jurgen Klopp's first visit to the Etihad in competition back in November 2015. We did discuss about, JJ and Bench did mention it, how like around mid-January we were like, well, this is over, isn't it? Man City have it. And, two significant things happened. I believe it was a draw against Southampton, and then obviously the loss to Tottenham that really just like switched the lights on everybody, because Liverpool just kept going. So, Bench, let's just focus on City for a second. They're at home. They're feeling good, I guess. I don't know how much of a battle scar situation they'll have after that Atleti victory. What do you expect from Man City in this starting lineup against Liverpool?
Yeah, Jack Grealish might have a few battle scars after the way he was resolutely.
Well, Correa is more of a Louis Vuitton guy. I think exactly. he didn't appreciate the Gucci contract. Yeah, exactly.
And Yves Saint Laurent ultras across the Atletico Madrid team. I mean, yeah, it's funny what you say, Luis, because you've just kind of listed off the results there, and then there were the 2 drop points against Crystal Palace, which pretty much every top team is. Every top team and Arsenal are dropping points against Crystal Palace at the moment. So, I think almost that needs to be seen in a different light as well. They are still hugely effective. It is a little bit that there is still that sense that there's a way you can do some damage to City, which we saw Atleti nearly do. We saw what Tottenham did, which was draw the press and somehow beat the press. Now that is so much easier said than done, but Tottenham did the thing really well of passing the ball, keeping control of possession, and then hitting it quick high up the pitch. Whether that's going to be to a Jota or a Salah or Firmino. I think it could be a good game for Firmino, this one. And then once you break through that line, this City team can be vulnerable because they are going to commit numbers forward, because that's how they create all their chances and win most of their games. This is the risk reward, the same as Liverpool's high line, which can sometimes look kamikaze high, but it gets an awful lot of players offside. It is still looks very comfortable and very composed. I think Guardiola is at the stage, and I wrote about this in my pre-match column, where he's just in a routine. He's not varying that much, in terms of the tactics. We saw that against Atletico. It was basically a standard 4-3-3, but Bernardo was a false 9 rather than a true number 9. And I think he will do kind of something similar and just change the personnel at the weekend. So they're on a routine. It's not kind of pretty, and it's not as effective as it has been at their peak, but they're hard to score against, and they're creating a lot of chances. So, and I thought they did very well to break down a pretty obdurate Atletico team. So
best defensive record in the Premier League, 18 goals conceded only. That's 2 less than Liverpool. So
yeah, it's hard to get that excited about just sort of continual excellence without sort of as many moments as there've been in the past. But I don't think they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. They may lose, we don't know, but I don't think they'll ruin the game for themselves.
Yeah, I think for me, this one for City, it's just such a great opportunity for them to give themselves that little bit of breathing space. I mean, I'm sure they're not too worried about that second leg coming up against Atletico Madrid, but I think it might start to put a little bit more pressure on Guardiola in the Champions League. If they were suddenly knocked off of top spot by this Liverpool side, it's a real chance for them to stem that momentum that Klopp's men are enjoying. I wouldn't say necessarily deal a fatal blow in terms of title hopes, but it would be a big step towards retaining the title. So, we'll see if it plays out like that. I was also interested to see that Guardiola's been linked in the press with the Brazil national team job after the World Cup. I mean, I'm not throwing out there all of these, the most spurious transfer rumors that I can find.
Please let that happen. But he can't listen. If he thinks he's going to wear a turtleneck in Barranquilla, forget about it. If you think you can press the ball in the 70th minute in La Paz, forget it. Please get this job. 2 minutes of CONMEBOL drama and he's out of there. Please make this happen, please.
It's quite funny though, because obviously I don't think he could manage the Spanish national team. His deep Catalan roots. I'm not sure how comfortable he would fit, and he's managed the Catalan national team. Yeah. Can we have him at England?
I just want South American drama. Just the idea of him in the 75th minute in Bolivia telling Neymar Jr. to press, and Neymar's looking at him going, you do realize how high we are above altitude, right? Calm down.
I mean, I'm thinking that international football clearly needs to be the next great canvas for the Mourinho Guardiola drama. So
I agree. Mourinho to take over Portugal, and
no, I want.
you want England?
No, I want Mourinho to take over Brazil, and then Pep gets Argentina.
I love that, James Bench. Let's make it happen. The absolute pressers after the games would be absolutely fantastic. There'll be riots everywhere. I mean,
you'd have to have a friendly every month.
I mean, listen, Mourinho's
80%. Suddenly those calls for a biennial World Cup will come back, 100-fold.
Mourinho's 80% Peruvian anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But it would be absolutely hilarious. I love it. Well done on bringing that up, Jonathan Johnson. All right, well, let's finish up. It would be remiss not to mention, by the way, once again, this article from Der Spiegel regarding, what's going on within the investigation on Man City. A few key notes here. Underage players were allegedly pressured to sign contracts with Man City through monetary payments. Club sponsors in Abu Dhabi are suspected of having provided only a portion of their payments to the club themselves, with the majority reportedly, coming from Sheikh Mansour himself. Roberto Mancini, who was then the manager at the time, who was there from 2009 to 2013, thought to have received a significant portion of his compensation secretly by way of, and I quote, fictitious consultancy contract. There's a lot going on here. It's been going on for 3 years. Thoughts on this? JJ, back to you. Is it, it's not new, right, these news, but it's interesting that they're resurfacing once again.
No, it's not new. It's it's something that's been chewed over for quite a while, and I don't imagine that these will be the final updates either. But I mean, it is interesting in a way, but also when you're looking at some of this, it's sort of so far now in the past. It's been perhaps not as incendiary as it would have been, say, sort of like five years ago or so. I don't think anyone will be really too shocked, by some of those revelations, especially given sort of what we've seen in modern football over the last 12 to 18 months. But, also at the same time, this is something that could still have, sort of real life consequences, so to speak, given that the investigation is still supposedly ongoing.
I think in the end, the investigations, they will go nowhere. We saw this when UEFA tried to throw Man City out of the Champions League. Man City will lawyer them in CAS and they will get what they want. But, we have to remember that this hasn't changed. Right now, Man City have the highest commercial revenue of any club in world football. And I'm sorry, but sponsors are not rushing to Man City externally. It's all coming from the UAE. This isn't going to change. I think that's the really dispiriting part about this, because it's not fair, but nothing's going to happen, sadly.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about the other side of Manchester as they travel to Everton, by the way, who midweek they lost in eccentric fashion to Burnley. And it is looking interesting for Evertonians as they look to stay in the Premier League. But there's a relegation fight here from Frank Lampard. And Sean Dyche, by the way, after that game on Wednesday and the 6-pointer, he said, I said at halftime, I'm not sure Everton know how to win a game, lads. And I think, Sean, you might be correct. Lampard continues to search for his first away victory with the club. But, they face a Manchester United side who have proven to be inconsistent. James Bench, thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's curious because these are the games that you want when you're in the relegation dogfight, aren't they? Teams that are already mentally on the beach. And I think if we know anything about this Man United squad, they are not going to react to the news that Erik ten Hag is going to be appointed their new manager by really knuckling down, because they've never knuckled down before. So this could be a better game for Everton than we think, although their run-in is hellacious. There's some really tough games there. Sean Dyche was right. They just look like a team that not only do they don't know how to win, they don't really know how to play football. It's reliant on Anthony Gordon, getting the ball to the front two. Calvert-Lewin looks completely lost. Richarlison, he scored some penalties, but did he do a huge amount else? I only really saw the highlights. It's looking tough, and I think you have to say they're favourites to go down right now. And this is a big game to turn it round. If they can get some points, maybe we change the view. But right now, Everton are slipping, and they need to sack Frank Lampard now.
You know what? I don't disagree with that. It's very, very grim reading when you look at Everton's record since Lampard came in. I don't think that many of us are too shocked by the way things have gone, but also at the same time, I think something you have to bear in mind, when you get to this stage of the season, for years you've had clubs where people say like, oh, they're too big to go down when there's sort of the first sniff of potential relegation battle issues. And then suddenly when a club like Everton gets dragged into it, you realize that, there's absolutely no way that they're not, too good to go down. They are absolutely relegation fodder in their current form. And when you have that sort of pressure, that negativity building up in the dressing room, as they obviously have, you need an unexpected result to snap you out of it. And I can only see, perhaps an unexpected win over, sort of a club of Manchester United's stature as the only possible thing that could potentially spark them back into life. But I feel like we've already spoken about Everton picking up, a couple of maybe unexpected results, in recent weeks, and they've still managed to throw it away the match afterwards. So I'm not convinced that this is something that they're going to be able to remedy unless, they can perhaps bring somebody else in who will get an immediate reaction better than the one that Frank Lampard has gotten since he's been appointed.
Just to add on this Everton point, and I know that our editor Mike Goodman may well be listening, so I do want to be really doom and gloom about this. Going back to what JJ was saying about these teams being too good to go down. When you kind of look at that squad and you're looking at it with the mindset of I'm going to be an Aston Villa or a Tottenham or a team that's going to look to pick up the good pieces from Everton when they do get relegated, who are you taking beyond Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin and maybe a few flyers? And how many of the players that you wouldn't touch with a barge pole, Everton paying 6 figures a week for, a Decore, an aging Alan who is not the player he was. We were joking about this last night about it'd be fun for Everton fans that they get to win some games in the Championship. I'm sure they'll win more than they are winning in the Premier League right now. But also, new stadium to pay for, huge wage bill, the biggest losses in the Premier League over the last 3 years. It has to be said, if they go down, this could be a quick return. It could be a derby, or it could be a really tough few years for Everton. And
this is why it goes. Yeah, it's beyond. And to your point, this is not just about Frank Lampard. It's the lack of management and leadership that this club has had. The only player that I can think of when you're mentioning Anthony Gordon is a great talent, but it's about it. Nobody's too big to go down. Take it from 2 Villa fans who are right now. Like, anybody can go down, especially if you're playing like that. Good question from Des Norris. Should Pickford forget about the World Cup in this way if, a certain Arsenal goalkeeper is knocking on the door, James Bench?
I mean, he would have to go and get Premier League football, wouldn't he? I don't know. And, I'm not sure how many Premier League teams would be that desperate to have him, but it's a strange one because I think if he's playing regularly, he'll start at the World Cup because Gareth Southgate likes him and he's never let England down. But that's what it would kind of come down to. And you will have quite a few players. I mean, quite a few. Richarlison will be thinking exactly the same. It's not just, it's a World Cup in 6 months' time and he's got a chance at the Brazil squad. He'll be like, get me out of here right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's quickly talk about Erik ten Hag for a second, as reports are closing in on him becoming the next manager of Manchester United. Obviously, we know the pedigree that he has given within the Netherlands. He was part actually of Pep Guardiola's, Bayern Munich. He managed the reserves there as well. Like, he's got a lot to offer. But this laundry list, Jonathan Johnson, that Manchester United needs, it's beyond tactics, beyond strategy. There's so much going on that United leaves. Do you think Erik ten Hag is the right man for the job? Does Erik ten Hag want this? Clearly he does, but what do you make of this appointment that surely sooner rather than later is going to happen?
Yeah, it's a huge task that awaits him at Old Trafford. I think so much of it is going to depend on whether the players buy into, what he's going to try to implement. And obviously a lot of that will be decided by how much respect Ten Hag is going to garner in that dressing room. You'd like to think that they'd recognize all of the achievements that he's managed to do with Ajax over the last couple of years. There's no guarantee though, and also, it's not really just about the players and Ten Hag coming in as a manager. It's about what United are prepared to do and change at the top of the club that's really going to send them off in a new direction. And are they going to make those changes that are necessary for them to move on, to take things back to, focusing on the football once again? I'm not convinced. Louis van Gaal wasn't convinced either when he gave his opinion a couple of weeks ago, where he said, I'd rather see Ten Hag joining a football-focused club as opposed to a business-focused club. And I think as well, Ralf Rangnick's comments, which basically suggest that he's being cut out of all sort of consultation with regards to the potential next appointment of a manager, suggests that we were kind of fooled into thinking there might be some sort of strategy midway through the season. And actually United are just making it up as they go along. And Ten Hag is perhaps, sort of flavor of the week at this moment in time. And he'll be left to his own devices as soon as he arrives.
There's a lot I agree with there. And, JJ hits the nail on the head when he says that, Ten Hag isn't joining a football club. He's joining a multimedia operation that happens to play football on the side.
And I know all about that.
Indeed. The one thing I would say is, this goes back to when they sacked Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and the first name I heard, and we reported this at the time, was that they wanted to talk to Erik ten Hag at the time, and Ten Hag basically indicated, I'm not leaving mid-season. So this isn't something they've picked up on a whim, and it was, they've spent a long time narrowing it down to Pochettino and Ten Hag. The guy, as we all know, the guy's a great coach who can do a lot with kind of arguably a lesser standard of players, as good as they are at Ajax. And I think the time has kind of come to move on. For me, he's the best coach they will have appointed since Sir Alex Ferguson left, in terms of modern view of how football should be played. Mourinho, his time had passed. Van Gaal, a little bit too esoteric at the wrong moment. And then, Moyes and Rangnick and Solskjaer, just not really in the conversation. It's the right choice. I mean, but as JJ says, it's about kind of everything else needs to be right. I wouldn't worry too much about Rangnick. Just people say, oh, he's only doing 6 days a month work as a consultant. Well, it's like, well, yeah, that's what consultants do. They never turn up and you pay them loads of money.
Nice work if you can get it.
Yeah, exactly. I need to get on board on some of this stuff. But this is it's a good step. And if you start surrounding him with people that know the league, Steve McLaren, people that know the club, it's all okay. JJ's right. They need to convince the world that they can get out of their own way. But this is the right manager to a point.
Yeah, I think essentially it's United the right club for Ten Hag, as opposed to is Ten Hag the right manager for United. I've always thought that really the best man for this job, who won't even touch it with a barple, is Zinedine Zidane. Just because there's so much that he has to deal with aside from football. I agree 100%, James Mensch. Ten Hag as a manager, as a tactician, somebody that knows strategy and developing players. May I remind you of Frankie de Jong and what he's become? It all started with somebody like Erik ten Hag, as well as Ziyech and De Ligt, etc. So he can do that with young players. But the laundry list is huge, and rightly so. Reportedly, Ten Hag's interview was just basically asking United more questions than the other way around. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But as a tactician, he's ruined. Yeah, go ahead, JJ.
One last thing to add as well is I think it's a smarter move than Pochettino at this moment in time, because going for Ten Hag, But in both cases, on paper you're going to get a very fine manager. Somebody who can potentially do wonders with the squad. But in terms of the compensation, you're almost going to be paying the same price as you would, say, a squad player for Pochettino to get him out of that contract at PSG. Whereas at Ajax,
financially,
the price is a lot more reasonable. I mean, I know at the end of the day, United run as a business. They're not exactly short of money, but it's smarter business, in my opinion.
Yeah, I believe it's just 4 million in compensation to Ajax and like something like 25 million to PSG for Pochettino. And plus, you don't need a manager who's down on his luck meeting a club who's down on their luck. I don't think they're going to motivate each other by any means. All right, we're going to take a break. James Bench has to bounce out. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, JJ and I will continue the conversation, including, of course, the relegation dogfight in the Premier League, some UEFA regulations that are coming into place and being proposed by Seferin, as well as the remaining matches around Europe. Qué Golazo weekend preview. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, welcome back. Qué Golazo weekend preview. James Bench left us, Jonathan Johnson, and yours truly here. It's a Villa Faithful podcast now, so take it or leave it, I'm afraid. All right, let's talk about the relegation dogfight in the Premier League for a second. Jonathan Johnson, we talked about Everton and how difficult it's going to be for them. But then I'm looking around these teams, and hopefully Des Norris will put up the table in a second. But, I guess Newcastle are okay, 31 points. But Everton have 2 games in hand on Leeds United, who are 16th, and they have 30 points. And then you have Burnley, Watford, Norwich. It's getting interesting. What say you regarding these clubs right now, and who has the upper hand? Because Burnley and Everton both have 2 games in hand on Leeds United. It's going to be tricky all the way to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I still think at this moment in time, the smart money is reckoning that it's going to be sort of 3 of the bottom 4 at the moment. I'm not saying that Leeds have done enough just quite yet, but I think it's reasonable to expect that they're going to pick up more points, as this new manager bounce under Jesse Marsch continues. I mean, I think for me, it's really between Burnley and Everton. I mean, unless Watford, really get motoring late on, I can't really see them staying up. And I think Burnley just might have sort of that momentum, that grit. We spoke about Sean Dyche earlier and sort of the way that, he jokingly teased, that Everton don't know how to win a match. Everton don't know how to be in a relegation battle, and Burnley have, they've basically
DNA.
Exactly. They've made their Premier League existence avoiding the drop sort of against the odds. So, for me, I think that it's going to be one of those 2 that survives at this moment in time. But, I could be proved wrong, but I struggle to see Everton getting out of this unless they can somehow snap this negative spiral that they're in. And really, I expect Leeds to pick up another few points and get themselves out of there as well.
Yeah, but by the way, the schedule is conflicting for pretty much everybody. Everton have United next, Leicester City, the Merseyside derby, Chelsea, Leicester City again, a dogfight against Watford. This is not going to be easy for Leeds, by the way. After Watford, it also gets interesting. Crystal Palace, Man City, Arsenal, and Chelsea. So you think that maybe Burnley is going to be the beneficiary of that. And if any way it can happen for Norwich and Watford, it has to happen right now. But I think I agree with you. I think, like I said a while ago, Everton is going to find itself in that bottom 3, and it will be, wow, kind of incredible to believe after how I guess it all started with, Rafa Benitez, etc. All right, well, let's move on here. By the way, everybody, the 2022 Masters is underway, and the First Cut Golf podcast has you covered with round-by-round coverage after every tournament day. Rick Gaiman, Carl Porter, and the First Cut crew are breaking down the odds board every night and bringing you analysis from the grounds of Augusta National. Go join the First Cut Golf podcast, available wherever you're listening to this pod, the First Cut Golf podcast, and some Masters action on CBS Sports HQ as well. All right, JJ, UEFA, Seferin moving around some proposals here, relaxing the financial fair play ruling, of course, regarding how much clubs are going to be able to be in debt. Clubs won't be allowed to report losses of $65.5 million over 3 years. I mean, there's a lot going on here. Let's first talk about that side of things, the relaxation of FFP. What do you make of it?
I mean, I think it was inevitable, given how many issues there have been with FFP over the years. I don't know if, what's being brought in is the way that I would have approached it, but I think it was the only way to get the majority of clubs on board to do this. And what I think this is this is kind of part of the tactic that's been implemented by UEFA over the last 12 months since the attempt at the Super League breakaway, where UEFA have taken the opportunity presented by that failure to basically take some of the elements, that made Super League appealing to a lot of the clubs that signed up for it, drop it into their new sort of proposals, either via the reforms, or these new, financial limitations, if we can call them that. That way, I think it's going to keep the majority of the clubs happy and ultimately keep the risk as low as possible with regards to a new potential Super League popping up on the horizon in the next sort of 5 years or so.
Yeah. And what about the second part of it, which is from 2024, when they revisit the plans for the Champions League? About 2 additional spots will be given for clubs with historical significance. Hey, JJ, I guess we're back in the Champions League, huh? If we just dust off the 1982 title.
Yeah, I mean, I like to wind up friends, if they're PSG fans or Arsenal fans, for example,
or Man City,
our team Villa, Man City as well. We have won the European Cup at least once in our history, and I mean, obviously, the romantics in us, would love for there to be some sort of pathway back to the Champions League for clubs like Villa, maybe even a Forest, as you mentioned before we got recording. But I think realistically, this is a safety net for those clubs who have qualified regularly for the Champions League. So potentially, enter an Arsenal who just miss out, and perhaps get parachuted in, which, I mean, I'm very traditional about my views of what the Champions League should be, and I just feel that each time changes are made, it gets more and more watered down, and is now very far from what it claims to be, because it's not been a league of champions for a long, long time. In fact, you're more likely to have, sort of fourth place teams in a lot of European leagues, as opposed to champions of some of the countries, who are rated fairly high up in the coefficient rankings. So for me, I think it's a little bit of a nonsense, but obviously I won't be complaining if Villa suddenly get in.
Let's be honest. This is basically UEFA saying to the Super League teams, look, forget about the Super League, but this is kind of how we can help you out a little bit. It's trying to remix a horrible idea. Of course, the romantic in me would love to get Christian Purslow to show UEFA, look, we won it in 1982. You can't say that about Arsenal or City, right? But it doesn't work like that. I'm with you. I'm a traditionalist too. The more you change it, the less significant it becomes. And that's a problem. You should be able to reach the Champions League based on merit. That's it. Did you make it? And already there's a leg up for the big teams because of a financial advantage, especially in the Premier League, right? If you are an amazing story like Leicester City, right, winning the Premier League that time and then going to the champion, that's an amazing thing. And that's what fans want to see. We want to see those storylines. The moment you water it down and bring back the historical, recognition of the past. No, yeah, but, back in the day, reputation-wise, they belong here. That's not, competition is exactly that, competition. You make it here because you earned your right in the season previous, not because of what happened 5 years ago. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the Serie A. Thoughts on the Serie A here. The race, talking of the race, by the way, interesting. 3 teams in contention, of course. Napoli against Fiorentina, Inter Milan against Verona, Torino against AC Milan. It's going to be very interesting. AC Milan leading the table, of course, Napoli and Inter. How do you see this one? I mean, we can go very quickly on each match. Napoli-Fiorentina, how do you see that one? A home win for the Naples faithful or something different?
Yeah, I mean, I do expect them to win this one, and I think ultimately they'll benefit from going up against quite a tricky opponent because Fiorentina are a team that can take the game to you. I mean, we know that they've suffered a bit since Vlahovic left. They've not been the same since the turn of the year, but also at the same time, they are still a team who can be quite formidable, quite difficult to beat on their day. So I think that this is potentially a tricky one for Napoli. Quite clearly now, the title race is sort of breaking away with those top three. Obviously, Inter in danger of being left behind as well. But for Napoli, this is one they really can't afford to lose, and they absolutely need to make the most of home advantage between now and the end of the season. And I think what they really need to do, and I've mentioned this a few times before, is they need to make sure that they dictate the tempo of the game, because if not, this Fiorentina side still has the quality to, if not beat them away from home, then at least hold them to a draw.
So what's trickier then? Because I got a little bit disjointed by the fact that Milan got a stalemate against Bologna, and now they face Torino away from home. That's 2:45 Eastern. Don't forget, you can watch these games on Paramount Plus. And then Inter at home to Verona. That should be a win for Inter, Jonathan Johnson, right?
Yeah, I'd be fancying Inter over Verona there. And AC, I mean, I do still think that they'll have too much for a team like Torino. Torino, kind of one of those teams that flatter to deceive a bit. When I've been checking out their results so far this season, they have some quality that could perhaps put them a bit higher up in the table, but they rarely, match that with consistency. I mean, I guess that in many ways makes them potentially a dangerous opponent for Milan to come up against, especially given that they already, dropped some points against Bologna recently. But I think that Milan will see, the opportunity here, especially given that Napoli have, a tougher game on paper than they do. And I expect at least two of the top three to be winning those games. But really, I think it's going to be all three, claiming maximum points this weekend.
So as is in Serie A, and don't forget midweek, the second leg of Coppa Italia semi-finals, Inter against AC Milan on Tuesday, and obviously the following day Juventus against Fiorentina, and it was 0-0 in the Milan derby and 1-0 on Juventus. So should be one to watch out for Tuesday and Wednesday. All right, let's wrap everything up here, Jonathan Johnson. We moved on from Serie A. So just let's go with some final thoughts, everybody. A few notes from yours truly, and then JJ, you tell me what you want to discuss. There's an intercontinental derby here in Turkey, Fenerbahce against Galatasaray. Obviously, historically, a really good derby, but neither team is doing that well. And Bayern Munich, who lost to Villarreal, looking to amend things against Augsburg, who are hitting survival forms right now. 3 wins from last 4, despite one for you here, USMNT fans. Ricardo Pepi still waiting for his first goal. Any thoughts regarding the rest of Europe or anything else you want to touch on, my friend?
I mean, looking at the Bundesliga, as somebody who's got a bit of a soft spot in their heart for FC Köln, I'm looking at that Carnival derby against Mainz this weekend. Could be a big game for both of them. So that's definitely one I'll be keeping an eye on. There's some tasty fixtures as well over here in France coming up. You've got the likes of Lens against Nice, which I think will be great. Strasbourg-Lyon as well. So plenty to look out for there. Remy Cabella as well, resurfacing with Montpellier. That was an interesting midweek move. You don't get too many of those transfers at this moment in time. So to see him return home, where he obviously won the Ligue 1 title with Montpellier that season that they pipped PSG in the very first campaign of PSG being under Qatari ownership. That's one for the nostalgics, as I commented to our own Ian Joy when he commented on my tweet about it the other day. So lots to look forward to there, and just really excited about another fantastic weekend of football coming up.
Absolutely, and I can't leave without talking about El Tráfico as well this weekend in MLS. It should be a good one. Don't you just love the name of that derby, by the way?
It's awesome. I mean, normally a lot of the rivalries, sort of get like a bit of I wouldn't say a mediocre name, but kind of a little dull, like the Hudson River Derby, that kind of stuff. But then to have one that's actually called El Tráfico is just perfect.
It's perfect. And by the way, it should be a good one because LAFC lead the Western Conference, by the way. They haven't lost a game yet. And LA Galaxy are in third as well. They've only lost twice. Both, obviously, this is one for the Mexican fans as Carlos Vela face Chicharito. And it should be a good one because right now, LAFC 13 points, Real Salt Lake 11, and Galaxy on 9 points. El Tráfico, I believe that's Saturday night. It should be a fantastic matchup. And that's it. That's it for us here on Qué Golazo on our weekend preview. I want to thank, obviously, James, Benj, and Jonathan Johnson for sticking around. JJ, thank you so much, buddy.
No, my pleasure as always. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for everybody. YouTube.com/Qué Golazo. Help us get to 11,000 subscribers. We got so much content coming your way, including weekend recap on Sunday night, another week of Champions League action as we find out who makes it to the semifinals, and so much more. Jonathan Johnson, James Benj, LME, Qué Golazo. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next time.